I am so glad to have this in my hands, and I've been wanting to show this to you for a while now. But I recently bought this from a Titanic collector who was selling some of their things, and almost everything they had for sale was amazing. But I picked one thing from that collection, and it was this Collier's. If you look at the cover, you'll see a photograph taken from the deck of the steamer Carpathia, showing one of the Titanic lifeboats. Um, and let's take a look at the date. May 4th, 1912. Just a few days after the sinking of the Titanic. And this is original. This is not a copy or a reprint. This is 107 years old. And we're about ready to take a journey into history. This was one of the most consumed pieces of journalism and literature after the sinking of the Titanic by the American public. This magazine sold like hotcakes, yet there are so few copies remaining. This magazine has been featured in many documentaries about the Titanic, so some of you Titanic buffs who are tuning in might actually recognize it. As you can see by the fading, this magazine was sitting for decades somewhere under some other books, and the light bleached some different parts of it. So, but nonetheless, it's good quality paper. There's also a large crease in the middle, which meant that about 100 years ago, whoever bought this folded it in half. If we turn it over, there's a full color ad for Kellogg's, cornflakes, and everything about this ad I really like, down to the old style box, the whimsical ad, sort of a Norman Rockwell quality to it, and just imagine going to the grocery store and picking up a box like that. It's just very cool. So let's open this magazine up. I've got a cup of coffee here because I don't know how long this is gonna take. But let's see. Okay, so on the first page we have another ad for cereal, and it reads, "This is my bakery. Many bakeries in the larger cities are being condemned by health officers as unclean and unsanitary. Government inspection is good, but public inspection is better. 100,000 persons visit the home of shredded wheat every year. Every detail in the process of making shredded wheat is open to the public. The master baker cannot give you anything so clean, so pure, so wholesome as shredded wheat biscuits." And I tell you what, I love some frosted shredded wheat. That is, and that's some good breakfast. The Shredded Wheat Company, Niagara Falls, New York. But what's interesting about this is Collier's was considered a muckraker magazine, and that term was coined by President Teddy Roosevelt because they tackled social justice investigative reporting. And so it's interesting to me that they're kind of like scoffing at government health officials. The other thing that's interesting about this ad is Collier's had a very famous lawsuit between themselves and Post Cereal Company over an ad they did about grape nuts that was very negative. So it's funny that they're showing all of grape nuts as competitors so prominently. I mean, we're already two cereal ads into this 100-year-old magazine. But the next ad is for Oldsmobile, 1912. Just to give you an idea, this was $1,055, the price for this car, but top windshield not included in price. We equipped this car with mohair top, side curtains, and slipcover, windshield, gas tank, and speedometer, all for $100 extra. Those things were not standard equipment, which is interesting to me. And then if you want a self-starter, it's $20 extra. That's the little button that would start it instead of having to crank it out there in the front. But this was not unusual. In the 1940s, my uncle Morrell won a radio contest, and he got a 1940 something Hudson, but the Hudson didn't have anything in it because it was just a basic car. He had to pay for extras like, I think, the speedometer and seat covers, and I mean, it's kind of ridiculous what was extra back then. But they've changed that. The next page is just full of ads for educational institutions. And if you're in college, Who knows, your college might be here, so I'm going to pan across it. And there's also other trades that they're advertising here. There's a National 40 car ad, which is just beautiful. You probably recognize some of these names. If you can draw this picture of President Taft, you might be an artist. How long has that been running? Different incarnations. There's an ad for a shotgun. Here's the table of contents. Here's an ad for car tires, and just kind of take note at the simple tread and how narrow they were. I really like this ad right here. This is an ad for cat's paw rubber heels that go in your shoes, and they're non-skid heels. But what's interesting is this beautiful cat image, and if you go on eBay and others, Etsy and stuff, you'll see that this image is still incredibly popular, probably due to the cat craze and the vintage craze. But I have an original ad here, and I'm really glad to have it. So that's very cool. This is men's clothing from Pappenheimer. This would be your going to work suit. This would be your out on the town, eating dinner, shopping with your wife suit. This is your sporting outfit. This is how the smart man dressed. 1912, Pappenheimer, Chicago. Now we get to the first of many Titanic centric parts of the magazine, and here is a poetic piece of writing. I'm going to pull out, so if you'd like to pause and read the whole selection, read this whole passage, go ahead. So, here's the muckraker part of the magazine. This is the little tidbits news, and this is also how a magazine like this was laid out 100 years ago. That you'd have an article about the Industrial Revolution, how since the Civil War nothing's been worse. An article about discipline, maybe we should rethink the ways we discipline. Noblesse oblige is the concept that the elites have an obligation to take care of non-elite people. This is something about the Springfield Republican, something about racing. Oh boy. Dangerous illustrations. Robert Browning. Turning the 100. A Happy Adventure. And this is your selection of like your food for thought ads. Here is an article called Sealed Orders by Helen Churchill Candy. You might recognize that name as one of the survivors from the Titanic. This is her eyewitness account of the sinking, and it's a stirring read. I wish I could read the whole doggone thing to you, but that would make for a very long video. But it's written very well, and it's there's obviously all of the survivors have passed on now, but to read an account like this that was printed just less than a month after the sinking of the Titanic is very interesting. Here's some photographs you may have never seen. These are all taken from the Carpathia. Just some things to point out. Look how many people were in this lifeboat. That is not the capacity. When we think about the Titanic today, we might think about the movie. Some of us who study it more, consider the tragedy, consider how it could have been prevented. But at this time in 1912, there was a lot of anger. And you'll see this as we progress through this magazine, but there was a lot of anger about this. These lifeboats were not full. 700 people lived, 1,400 people died. That is wrong in every way you can think. this was a colossal, just a colossal F up. There's no other way to put it. When we set aside the romance and the costumes and that stuff, we have to remember this was an extremely awful and very preventable tragedy. And I'm aware that there were not enough lifeboats to accommodate everybody on the ship, but they sure could have gotten more than 700 people out of there. There's a lot of things that went wrong that night, and we may never know the answers. This is another picture showing some of the survivors wearing their fur coats on the deck of the Carpathia. A picture that's not widely printed. As a matter of fact, you don't see these pictures very much. Here we are. It's the Carpathia docks. The Carpathia brought into New York Harbor on Thursday night, April 18th. The 705 passengers, that's right, 705 passengers rescued from the Titanic. The scene at the dock was one which vibrated between episodes of extreme joy and deepest sorrow. The merely curious were kept far away from the dock by the police, but the crush to welcome the survivors was itself difficult to control. J. Bruce Ismay, managing director of the White Star Line, undergo an examination before the investigating committee of the United States Senate. Senator William Alden Smith and Senator Francis G. Newlands of the committee reached New York the night the Carpathia arrived, and Mr. Ismay was called before the committee the next day. Later sessions were held at Washington. I know Ismay is definitely, he was branded as a coward. He escaped the ship. But I think that in a way, he might have been a little bit scapegoated. There's a lot to the story. The deeper you dig on the Titanic, the more weird things you find out. And certain people canceling the trip before it embarked and so forth. There is a lot of strange things, and I'm not just talking about the futility book coincidence, but there's a lot of strange things about this story. Governor West of Oregon, and this is an article about prison labor. This is another one of their investigative reporting articles, and it shows convict labor. Now we get into the fiction section, because Collier's magazine from 1888 to 1957, briefly brought back in 2012. It ran fiction stories. Some famous books were first printed in Collier's. One thing I like about it is the illustrations. I really think are great. The Roar of the Room by James Church Albert. Now we have some great watercolors. The Captain of La Fleur Marachene. These watercolors have held up so good for a century, and the colors are vibrant. The illustrations are great. Here's some more ads. The Grant Motor Car Company, Cleveland 6th floor. The Grant 6, how H.H. Elmer used the brains of 894 expert engineers to design the Grant 6. Here's a continuation of one of the fiction articles we just looked at. And this is an interesting ad. It's got 3 leaky buckets, and it says, leaky buckets were never filled. Leaks in business are caused by carelessness, thoughtlessness, laziness, inaccuracy, and temptation. A national cash register stops these leaks and enables the merchant to get all his profits. It forces the proprietor and employee to be, look how they spelled employee, to be accurate and careful. It makes accurate, unchangeable records of every transaction occurring between buyer and seller. It enables the honest, ambitious clerk to prove his worth. It fixes responsibility for all concerned. It's a garden of morals, of money, and good names. This is a cash register. But we didn't have computers. This was a way to record sales without using the old sales book and pen and paper. This was one of the ways they were trying to make business more transparent. Here's an ad for tires. Look how white National Rubber Company is. They're painting the tire white. The demand for tire new is nationwide. If you have not stocked up the supply of your trade, go to your job or write to us for a price list of terms. Tire New is a scientific preservative of automobile tires, a liquid, unvulcanized rubber coating made of pure paragum will not flake, rubber wash off, wears like rubber. Tires have an inner framework of heavy cotton fabric and rubber coating which takes the wear. So I wonder if this is like, we have white wall tires. Well, they're painting the entire tire white. So you got to wonder if, white walls were sort of came out about because of this. Have your own private steel garage for $72.50. Edwards Fireproof Steel Garage. It's kind of modern looking, interestingly. Buy your canoe. Mullen Cedar Canoes can't sink. Here's your bond or household utility tool. It's got a hammer, a chisel, and a way to pull out nails, but not much else. Nowadays, an all-purpose tools got screwdrivers and an Allen wrench, corkscrews. Okay, this is Mitchell. Every automobile driver, maker, owner, agent knows that a used car tells more about material and making than ever told by a new car. If you want to know what a staunch car the Mitchell is, take a ride in one that has seen hard service. A Mitchell 6-cylinder 48 HP car that costs new $17.50. Look it over, listen to the motor, run it slowly, then pick up quickly. It may outwardly show lots of wear, but you'll find the vital sound. You'll see that the engine, transmission, axles, steering gear, the things that mean service and safety are all right. You'll appreciate the comfort of the 125-inch wheelbase. It does make a lot of difference. Wow, I'm sold. I want that car. Goodrich tires. They have a 3/4 page ad here. And the depiction continues here. Goodrich tires made of real rubber with white, tough tread. BF Goodrich Company, we're still in business. And in this article, Goodrich, the original American clincher, started right 15 years ago, by adopting and perfecting integral molded construction tires built as a unit, cured as a unit, proved greatest in strength, cohesion, mileage, service then as now. We're talking about 15 years of history here, folks. Ford, the universal car. Of the 3 languages do you speak, English, baseball, or motor, half the motoring world talks Ford, and 1/3 of it will ride this year in Ford cars. Every Ford owner is an enthusiastic Ford fan. That's the reason we will make and sell 75,000 new Ford cars this year. And I really particularly like this ad. I'm just going to read it for you. It's kind of brilliant. That boy of yours, it seems like yesterday that mother mourned the transition from skirts to trousers. His rocking horse will soon give way to the baseball and the pigskin. He's developing, changing every day, and you haven't had his picture taken in more than a year. Yes, it's 2 years since last Christmas. There's a photographer in your town, Eastman Kodak Company, and what's interesting about this ad is it's blank. There is no picture, and it's reminding you what a blank picture is: empty. And photography and cars, 2 big things in 1912, and that's what you see here. And they're pushing these 2 industries. Just like in the newspaper we looked at a couple of days ago, the 1963 Dallas Morning News, and you saw all the ads for televisions. Well, here you're seeing you're seeing the modern technology of 1912. Here's Dixon's graphite lubricant number 677, and it's pulverized graphite, powdered lubricant. It's good for engine parts that you don't want to subject to any kind of oil. Here's an ad for, and I've seen that logo. It looks like another company bought it, but this was United States Tires, and I think this became Michelin or something. I'm not sure. Goodyear, I don't. But when you buy United States Tires this spring, keep a record of their behavior and the actual mileage you get out of them. We want you to know how these 4 factory tested tires compare and deliver service with the tires you've been accustomed to using. The fact that your former tires were fairly satisfactory is all the more reason why we want you to keep a comparative record. An immense amount of additional labor is required. In conferences, comparative tests, fourfold inspection, etc., to build tires in the way United States tires are built, and we want motorists to measure the value of this extra labor by actual service results. Interesting. Chain of communication. I like this ad too. It's by American Telephone and Telegraph Company. You might know them as AT&T. The chain of communication. Each Bell telephone is the center of the system. This system may be any size or any shape, with lines radiating from any subscriber's telephone, like the spokes of a wheel, to the limits of the subscriber's requirements, whether 10 miles or 1,000. And look at this picture, how the country's connected. But this is still a long way before we're connected with other continents, which is really interesting. And that old logo. Downtown Chicago, first mortgage 6% bonds. The Strauss Building, S.W. Strauss and Company. The home of wholesale food. Get yourself a Monroe refrigerator. Is this a refrigerator or an ice box? It does away with cracks, joints, crevices, corners, and other natural hiding places for dirt, odors, decaying food, and dangerous microbes found in other refrigerators. Send for our valuable free book on home refrigeration. It tells you how to keep your food sweet and wholesome, how to cut down ice bills, what to seek and what to avoid in buying any refrigerator. Every housewife and homeowner should have one. It's funny because when you think about the 1940s and 50s, you hear about the ice box. So it seems to me that refrigerators were pretty modern in 1912. What's the answer? Farm Journal has never had an advertising solicitor on its staff. Search your memory or ask your advertising manager if he ever had a call from a Farm Journal advertising representative. Yet from our March issue of 1912, we had to omit 4,844 lines of advertising for lack of space. The more you think about this, the more significant it will become. Why does advertising come to Farm Journal? Wilmer Atkinson Company. Farm Journal. So, a subscription to a journal, a professional journal, not a scholarly journal, but so if you're a farmer, I'm sure this probably still exists in some incarnation. Your father could have become wealthy, and this is your usual ad about retirement that you still see today. Now what we have here is that famous Prince Albert tobacco can. If you've ever been to a thrift store, you've certainly seen one. And here's a picture of Oliver Wendell Holmes, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, smoking his pipe. And he's talking about it. Oliver Wendell Holmes, poet and publicist, the famous autocrat of the breakfast table. Like many other notable American poets, writers, physicians, artists, and lawyers, he knew the joys of a pipe. Distinguished Americans put the seal of approval on the Jimmy pipe. Prince Albert makes it possible for every man to enjoy the best of all smokes, the pipe. Prince Albert, the national joy smoke, gives you and every other man all the delights of a pipe affords, no matter how much you have been tongue-stung, or how much the rankness of other tobaccos jars your pipe enthusiasm. You sure will enjoy every puff of Prince Albert. Fragrant, fresh, sweet, long, and close burning, with the sting removed by a patented process. Prince Albert is a revelation. You smoke it, know yourself firsthand. Gentlemen, our word for it, you can smoke a pipe and you will enjoy a pipe if you'll just get out that old Jimmy and fire up a brimful load of Prince Albert. You should also know yourself that Prince Albert makes the most delicious cigarette you ever put a match to. Oh, 5 cents. Give it a try. A breath of fresh air free. Is your brain suit clogged? Do you yearn for the open fields and the wide country? Do you want to become a better money-getting machine? Do you feel a desire to go out and meet the old world of his home grounds and make him say uncle? Would you like to take a fresh stranglehold on your own destiny and start a new account on the right side of a ledger? Excelsior Autos. What does that have to do with motorcycles? This book is decidedly worthwhile as a literary creation. It exudes the fragrance of nature. It will make you younger merely reading it. It is full of vim, snap, and ginger, and is worth an hour of your time no matter how busy you are. The busier you are, the more you will appreciate the book. You and the motorcycle. I guess they're trying to promote buying a motorcycle in 1912. Speedy runabout at 2/3 boat builder's price. Every business and professional man needs it. The safe cabinet. Roberts Refinery Motors, boat engines, tobacco editorial. Here's another tobacco ad. This is continuations of the fiction. A Better Day's Profits. 1 copy free if you fill out coupon. 3 out of every 4 retailers who tried to figure out the simple problem given below got it wrong. Let's see if we can figure it out. Wholesale price $1. Cost of doing business 22%. 22 cents, okay. Retailers profit 10%, or I would say 10 cents. Retail selling price. So, okay. The cost of doing business is 22%. So you buy this thing for $1, and the cost of business makes it $1.22, and you need to add 10% on top of that. So you want 10% of $1.22. So that would be more like 12 cents. So the retail selling price should be $1.34. And let's see. Basing your percentages on selling price, the answer is not $1.32. I didn't think it was. I thought it was $1.34. Inability to compute profits correctly is only one source of loss to the retailer. So are they going to give you the answer anywhere? I want to see if I got it right. I didn't say it should be $1.34. Where's the answer at? Oh, they're not going to give us the answer. Well, anyway, I am an accountant, and I'm confident in my answer. It's $1.34 is the retail selling price. But I still wouldn't mind if I was in 1912. I would buy this ledger. Graflex cameras. This is put out by Kodak. Kodak was putting out all the cameras. But you could take, a picture of your baby, or you could take a picture of your buddies running a marathon. With the Graflex, you can make snapshots indoors or in the shade. The shutter will give exposures of any duration from time to 1/1000th of a second. You can see the image on the ground glass. The size it will appear in the negative up to the instant of exposure. Focusing scale and finder done away with, which there is no uncertainty with the Graflex. So if you want to get into photography, that's the camera you need. So Ship-Ahoy would get an ideal launch. I bet they regretted that ad. I think they bought it, paid for it, designed it before they knew what this magazine was going to be about. But the side of a lifeboat, this is kind of a chilling sight. Ohio Military Institute, founded in 1833, where to send your kids. Okay, brickbats and bouquets. This is like quotes. It is well for Collier's magazine, Collier's Weekly, and similar publications to realize that Mr. Roosevelt as a presidential candidate is simply impossible. Yeah, we're talking Teddy Roosevelt here running on the Bull Moose Party. Among the National Weekly magazines, Collier's is the most progressive on all lines except politics, and it would be in politics if it were not afflicted with an incurable case of Rooseveltitis. Apparently, Collier's they're saying that they're promoting Roosevelt too much. That's so interesting to me. Gotham shirts, smart shirts, Whitmore's shoe polish and that very ornate packaging. Shave your neck. You get a Panama hat. Paris garters. Back then, men often would they would take a garter and connect their sock with their shirt tail to keep their shirts tightly fitted and their socks from falling down. And then it's not a bad idea. It's just probably kind of uncomfortable to wear that all day. Arcadian mixture. This is tobacco. Strong arms here. If you buy Professor Anthony Barker's book for 25 cents, he will teach you how to get a physique like that. Then you can go spend your vacation at quaint Cape Cod. The seashore woods and country, splendid fishing, yachting, bathing, and golfing. Cool breezes always. Challenge collars and cuffs. See, back then a shirt didn't have a collar. The collar was a separate piece of clothing. Oh, that coffee's good. More of the Governor West of Oregon article about prison labor. Snug-Tex fabric belt is opposed to your leather belt. He's a fellow who not only is but also looks at. He keeps an eye on the fashion vein and sails with his style wind. This season you'll see a brand new note in attire, a fabric belt to match his suit. And if you look under the side of that belt, you'll find it stamped Snug-Tex. Aetna Insurance. Oh my gosh, it hasn't changed. Same logo and everything. Blue Label Ketchup. This is put out by Curtis Brothers, and a company that I don't think exists anymore. They also sold soups, jams, jellies, preserves, meats, canned vegetables, but Blue Label Ketchup was one of their products. And the selling point of Blue Label Ketchup was you could open the bottle if you didn't have a refrigerator. The preservatives in it will keep it from going bad. However, most of us know that the spices and the tomatoes and ketchup will make it last a long time anyway. Ketchup is a very long-lived sauce. Here's an ad for chocolate bonbons, including this chocolate burnt almond, which looks good, and the chocolate coffee scroll. Scrolls of higher sweet chocolate into which the finest roasted coffee has been ground. I bet that's good. Each piece of... What? Each piece of Hires is a marvel of deliciousness, a result of the infinite care given to every detail in its making. To get the name of Hires agent nearest you in the remarkable story of Hires, write for interesting booklet. It says how purity and quality are assured in all Hires products. Write us today. I wonder if Hires still exists, chocolate-wise. Make big money with a 1912 camera sensation. You become a photographer. Lean parent sauce, of course. You probably still see them at the grocery store. Worcestershire sauce. Here we go. Still continuing the fiction articles. Here's an ad for White House coffee. I don't know if that still exists. Here's a letter from a chemist for the Board of Health, and he says, "Gentlemen, herewith please find the analysis of a sample of your White House coffee purchased in the open market. We regard this coffee as a product of the highest grade and have accordingly placed it in our permanent exhibition of pure foods, a position of honor which it merits. Yours truly, L.B. Allen." So, yeah. Welch's grape juice. Try it and you'll agree no punch can surpass that. You'll agree no punch can surpass that made with Welch's grape juice. Surpass that made with Welch's grape juice. Try this. Juice of 3 lemons, 1 orange, 1 quart water, 1 cup sugar, and 1 pint of Welch's. Serve cold. That sounds pretty good. I do like this picture a lot. Welch's did not change their logo. Rice's Mill White. The paint that brims over with sunlight. Good Sport Smith & Wesson shooting. Let's see. Lost Treasures folding camera. My 6 exposures. It's like a little spy camera for $10. How cool is that? Lone Trap shooting. A Chicago office for $5 a month if you want to rent an office for your business. Buy yourself a steel pen. If you were in World War I hasn't happened yet. Okay, if you lost a leg in the Spanish American War, here's your prosthetic leg. Better boat trips. Sydney Shortline. Another portable fireproof garage. Old Town Canoe. Canoes must have been big. Hawkeye refrigerator baskets. A lunch, it's like a picnic stuff. Look at that. Maple Line, the Flavor Deluxe. A purely vegetable product. Maple Line being prepared product with a question often arises, what is it? What are its ingredients? We answer these very natural questions by stating that Maple Line is a purely vegetable product made from a combination of edible herbs by exactly the same extracting methods as are used to make other natural and vegetable fruit flavorings, such as vanilla and lemon. Colgate shaving cream. Yeah, it looks like toothpaste. Wet the brush, press out on it a little of this cream, work up lather on the face. Just in case you forget in the morning, the instructions are right there on the tube. Palmolive cream. unlike any soap you've ever used, where you can buy a bar of it. It's like a copy machine. How cool is that? If you have a commodity to sell and want to put in the market, Collier's classified columns can help you. So this is the classified columns. Let's see what kind of stuff. Photography, correspondence, schools, auto instruction, typewriters, office supplies, women agents, games and entertainments, plays, vaudeville sketches, monologues, dialogues, speakers. My goodness. Time making, metal stamping, collections. On the Barbary Coast, a woman's visit to San Francisco quarter where the turkey trot organized. I think that's a dance. How to become a master of English. "10 Days Free Trial." It's about bicycles. A book about poetry. Cincinnati Iron Fence Company. Another book about refrigerators. How to stop forgetting. Wheelchairs. Avoid the roller towels. Got tissue towels, and they still exist, and use like a blotter. Avoid the roller towel. It is dangerous, it is deadly. It is a carrier of germs that work. Okay, what they're talking about, you ever go into a gas station bathroom and they got that roller towel in their machine? You still see those occasionally in really old places. So even in 1912, they're telling you not to use that. LeBlanc's face powder. Look at that old halftone photograph. Here's a book ad, Shorty and Patrick. Sanatex brushes. Allen's Foot Ease. How to Have a Happy Marriage book. And an ad for Goodyear. Look at the logo. Isn't that cool? No cut rim tires. Full page ad. And we reached the finish line. So, I hope you enjoyed that. This is a look back in time at a famous magazine on a famous day, a famous issue. And I sure hope you enjoyed the video. And I'll see you tomorrow night. Bye.